Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our presentation today. This is our second to last webinar in the series for our Partner of the Year series for this year, so we're glad to see you have joined us today. So I'll start off with just giving an overview of the Partner of the Year Award because both of our presenters are Partner of the Year awards through their companies. So this is an annual award by the EPA, and it's awarded for a variety of criteria listed on the screen here, including for excellence in energy management, for leveraging Energy Star tools, for excellent internal and external communications, for being active in the partner community, and for having strong energy performance. And through the Partner of the Year applications, there is an opportunity for companies to submit webinar suggestions and to indicate if they're interested in presenting on future Energy Star webinars. So that's where we get some of our ideas for companies to present. So if you're applying this year, be sure to note if you have any best practices you'd like to share for our series next year. And applications are due in just about a month on December 7th, and you can go to energystar.gov/awards to learn more and to apply. I'd like to give a quick overview of today's webinar before we get started. We'll be featuring two Energy Star partners that were champions of BOMA's W2 challenge, and they will both be sharing examples of how they reduced water and waste in commercial buildings, including in data centers, offices, multifamily properties, and retail. And if you have a property type, such as a K-12 school or another property type, just stay tuned because likely some of the best practices that are shared will be applicable to you as well. So our presenters will dive into more details about this challenge, but essentially it was a 2-year program designed to encourage buildings to benchmark water usage and waste output and to implement best practices to improve performance. Participants committed to enter water and or waste data at least quarterly into Energy Star's Portfolio Manager tool over the 2018 and 2019 calendar years. And nearly 2,000 buildings from more than 400 cities across the U.S. participated. And now I'll introduce today's speakers. First, we'll be hearing from Madeline O'Donnell. She is an ESG and operations analyst at Principal Real Estate Investors. Madeline will share insights about Principal's water and waste tracking goals and best practices and the value of Energy Star Portfolio Manager combined with the BOMA W2 Challenge to engage property teams and drive performance. And then next we'll be hearing from Sorma McCullough, who's a Senior Manager ESG at Digital Realty, a leading owner, developer, and operator of global data centers, where she supports development of the company's strategy and global targets and oversees the implementation of the company's ESG programs. Sorma manages the company's annual ESG reporting and supports the company's renewable energy, energy efficiency, water conservation, and diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. That's a quick overview of our speakers, and now I'll turn things over to Madeline for our first presentation.
Thanks, Stacy. Hello all, my name is Madeline O'Donnell, and like Stacy said, I am an ESG and operations analyst at Principal Real Estate Investors. I'm excited to be here today to talk about water and waste saving strategies we learned and used through the W2 Challenge. On the next slide, I'll give a quick overview of what I'll be covering. I'll start with how and why Principal Real Estate Investors was involved in the W2 Challenge. Then I'll share some of the strategies for success that we used, including property manager training and partnership, data collection and analysis, and property engagement. Finally, I'll wrap up with some case studies showing how a few properties used those strategies. On the next slide, starting with our Principal Real Estate Investors history with Energy Star, we have been engaged with Energy Star since 2008 when we first started incorporating ESG into our investment process. At this time, we established our Pillars of Peak Performance program for office buildings, began collecting and benchmarking energy data for office buildings, and made early commitments to Energy Star by becoming an Energy Star partner. From 2013 to 2017, we expanded our ESG program to the Pillars of Responsible Property Investing Initiative, or PRPI, which I'll talk more about in a moment. We onboarded multifamily and retail properties into this initiative, in addition to the office properties that were already participating. A key component of this was setting up Energy Star Portfolio Manager accounts for multifamily and retail properties to use to track and report utility results. Another key milestone at this time was setting our utility reduction targets for 2020, including a target to reduce both water and waste by 10%. In support of the utility targets, we piloted and operationalized targeted programs for improved water and waste performance. And then from 2017 to 2020, we again expanded our ESG program, this time to include utility data collection from industrial buildings, and we joined the W2 Challenge to further drive water and waste performance. Next slide, please. Principal's Pillars of Responsible Property Investing initiative seeks to deliver positive financial results and ESG outcomes. 3 pillars guide our investment approach: market resilience, corporate governance, and property performance. Market resilience is based on reinforcing the social and economic vitality in markets where we do business to help strengthen local economies, foster healthy and productive environments for our tenants and residents, and reinforce the financial performance of our properties. We understand that how we conduct ourselves and our business and the decisions we make impact our tenants, residents, vendors, the community, and other stakeholders. Healthy living and working environments fall under this pillar, which includes green cleaning, recycling, green landscape practices, and sustainable purchasing requirements. Corporate governance is managing risk and meeting investor objectives through a commitment to the highest ethical standards and integrity. These concepts are deeply rooted in our overall culture at Principal. Some of the ways we do this that overlap with the concepts I'll be discussing today are compliance to policies and procedures through our controls, extensive underwriting of property management partners, joint venture partners, and other parties, and tracking, monitoring, and disclosing our ESG performance through programs like UNPRI, GRES, and Energy Star. Finally, the property performance pillar applies specifically to delivering enhanced financial and environmental performance through benchmarking energy, water, and waste, key components of the W2 Challenge. Also, operational best practices and stakeholder engagement, which were 2 of the strategies we relied on most heavily for success in the W2 Challenge. We do this throughout the property lifecycle, starting with reviewing ESG aspects during due diligence on new developments and acquisitions, and incorporating our development guidelines in each new development. During management and operations, the property performance cycle includes benchmarking, investigating opportunities through regular energy, water, and waste audits, implementing best practices, and engaging stakeholders. Finally, at disposition, we ensure asset values assess high performance and energy efficient attributes of properties, educate brokers on ESG features at the asset, and assist the new owner with ESG efforts by sharing historical utility consumption and Energy Star portfolio manager accounts. Next slide, please. So you can see the W2 Challenge was a natural fit within our Pillars of Responsible Property Investing initiative. The challenge provided key opportunities to engage property managers and tenants in core values of PRPI, such as benchmarking an Energy Star portfolio manager and monitoring water and waste usage. As Stacy said, participants in the W2 Challenge were committed to benchmarking water and/or waste data in Energy Star portfolio manager on at least a quarterly basis over the 2018 and 2019 calendar years. The challenge also provided opportunities for sharing best practices to save water and waste and recognizing achievements. At Principal, we had 178 buildings participate, including retail, office, and multifamily property types. Next slide, please. Our first strategy for success in the W2 Challenge was property manager training and partnership. We have a standard onboarding procedure for new properties and property managers. This includes building the property in Energy Star portfolio manager and training the team on how to input data and how to see if their utility company will directly upload full building data so they don't have to do it. Property managers are then asked to enter utility data monthly into Energy Star portfolio manager if their utility isn't doing it for them. Quarterly, our third-party sustainability consultant, RETEC, runs quality control to check for data irregularities and notifies property managers as needed. This information is used for internal and fund level reporting on ESG performance, including water and waste. And then annually, we conduct a property manager training webinar with updates on new procedures, expectations, and best practices. Next slide, please. The second strategy that led to success in water and waste reduction was data collection and analysis. We benchmark energy, water, and waste data in Energy Star portfolio manager because you can't manage what you don't measure. This is a screenshot of a water meter tab in Energy Star portfolio manager. The 2 boxes on the left show the 5 ways to enter data and the scope of the data. On the right is an example of some of the different types of water meters, such as potable indoor and outdoor, and reclaimed outdoor. Water usage, typically in gallons, and cost is entered monthly for each meter. Next slide, please. Benchmarking waste involves establishing the size of the container and how many times it is emptied during a month, what percent full the container is, and the total cost. This property, for example, has several meters, such as different size containers for waste, compost, and recycling, with varying frequencies of empty. Next slide. The data input in Energy Star Portfolio Manager is aggregated into usage trend graphs, which are really helpful. This graph shows water usage for one property's water meter. Water usage tends to fluctuate based on seasons due to irrigation, but you can see a downward trend in 2019 and 2020 after the W2 challenge started in 2018. Next slide, please. Here's another example with multiple water meters. You can see significant decrease in potable indoor water usage in 2019 and 2020 after the W2 challenge in 2018. On the next slide, there's an example of the waste trends charts from Energy Star Portfolio Manager. These show a variety of types of waste, including trash, compost, paper recycling, and mixed recyclables. Energy Star Portfolio Manager also shows a pie chart with the percent of each type of waste. The trend that this property dipped in 2020, probably due to COVID, but also due to some of the waste initiatives generated by the W2 challenge. Next slide, please. Our third strategy for success was property engagement. We provide tools and resources for savings, and we rely on our property teams to implement the initiatives at their properties. One way we do this is by sharing information with our property managers bi-weekly. We also do things like our Cornerstone Awards, which recognize the properties and property teams that go above and beyond during the year with efficiency projects. As part of the W2 challenge, BOMA provided tips on saving water and waste, which we passed on in our bi-weekly property manager updates for use on-site. Here's an example of an email that went to properties to suggest options for sourcing water supply from alternative sources. Facilities can take advantage of on-site opportunities by capturing, treating, and utilizing the water in another application. Potential sources include rainwater and stormwater, treated gray water, and air handling condensate. These sources could potentially supply irrigation, toilet flushing, outdoor fountains, and many other things. Next slide, please. This month's tip was to analyze your building's waste generation and research recycling options. Later in the presentation, I'll be highlighting a property that adopted this advice. Tips include: contact your waste hauler to understand exactly which materials are accepted in their recycling services. Identify what can be recycled, starting with the materials that make up the largest portion of your property's waste stream. Expand recycling collection beyond paper. Consider adding cardboard, plastics, and glass. It could even be worth exploring other options, such as plastic film used by trucks to make composite decking. Identify waste streams and ensure these materials are separately sorted and properly recycled. Items may include light bulbs, pallets, electronic waste, batteries, and plastic bags. Consider local donation programs for unconsumed food from a cafeteria or kitchenette, or take this a step further and explore a guide to workplace composting, which we included in that email. Next slide, please. BOMA also offered regular webinars throughout the W2 challenge, such as Every Drop Counts, Water Efficiency Solutions for Your Property. Water savings can come from interior, such as plumbing fixtures, or exterior, such as drought-tolerant plants and high-efficiency irrigation. On the next slide, we'll go into water savings tips related to irrigation. This email was sent to properties to share best practices for irrigation. Some of these include inspecting for leaks in broken or clogged sprinkler heads, considering drip irrigation, asking staff to look for pooled water in leaks, update to a weather-based irrigation controller that can adjust its watering schedule according to seasonal weather conditions, the type of soil, type of plants, and sun exposure. These include installing a moisture sensor and consider irrigating early in the morning or in the evening so water is not lost to irrigation during the heat of the day. Next slide, please. This update to properties focused on making recycling easy, convenient, and fun. Some of the tips were installing more recycling containers and making sure they're properly labeled, replacing desk side trash bins with recycling bins, creating a waste management team, holding regular meetings about recycling, posting fact sheets and sending staff emails, newsletters, or other announcements, and motivating employees to participate by creating competitions and implementing incentives. I'll be highlighting another property next that has highlighted some of these tips and more. Next slide, please. So one example is Hardin House, which is a dormitory at the University of Texas at Austin. They took this challenge very seriously and implemented some great ideas to reduce waste. They had their waste management vendor train staff to better implement clean recycling and composting disposal of items from the rooms during cleanout. During the mandatory move-in meetings, they included a short presentation to all residents about the importance of recycling and composting at Hardin House and how the residents can be a part of that, such as using the recycling bag that was provided to gather their recycling, then using containers provided throughout every house and floor to sort their recycling and deposit compostable materials. They provided instructions for sorting recycling, compost, and landfill items throughout the houses to aid residents and staff in participating in green efforts. They added compost collection bins in bathrooms where paper towels must be used for sanitary reasons. They used compostable garbage bags for compost containers despite their extra expense. And finally, they participate in something local to the area called the West Campus Move Out Initiative, which is sponsored by the City of Austin's Resource Recovery Department. During this, residents make donations to barrels for charities such as Austin Creative Uses, Easter Seals, and Salvation Army. This way, items destined for landfills are rerouted to other uses. The dorm also helps sponsor this event by serving as the parking lot for volunteers working the apartment drop-off station and furnishing lunches one of the days for the volunteers. Next slide, please. Green First Town Center is another property that was inspired by this challenge to focus on water and waste reduction. This is a retail center. Some other efforts included completing a major landscape renovation project to include the installation of irrigation drip lines throughout the center, accompanied by smart controllers to better manage water usage based on needs associated with changing weather conditions. They frequently inspect irrigation systems for leaks, damage, or puddling, and make any needed repairs immediately. The property is walked monthly to ensure there is no evidence of underground water line breaks or system failures. They also winterize and turn off irrigation and recirculating fountain systems during the winter months. The team has engaged with local authorities and service providers to establish robust recycling programs at the center. They've established a recycling and e-waste policy, installed trash and recycling containers throughout the common areas, and launched the planning of an annual recycling and donation event with local recyclers hosted by the property. Property teams monitor waste to identify causes of significant volume changes and review trash and recycling frequently with the goal of combining various containers, which will reduce the overall CAM expense, foster a proactive mindset of tenants to think before they dispose, and decrease scheduled pickups, which will in turn decrease the property's carbon footprint. Finally, they continue to communicate on a regular basis with tenants about sustainable and efficient options that they could implement on the interior of their spaces. Next slide, please. The third property I'll highlight is Park Place, which is a mixed office and retail campus in Irvine, California. The team at Park Place is very focused on sustainability and efficiency improvements, some of which include replacing all manual faucets, toilets, and soap dispensers with touchless technology, installing filters on cooling towers to reduce chiller tube water deposits, which saves over 330,000 gallons of water and $52,000 annually. There's a comprehensive recycling plan with battery and toner recycling stations, biannual e-cycle events for other electronics, and an organics recycling program for campus restaurants to recycle food scraps to be used for animal feed or composted into a soil amendment. Finally, like Green Furs, a key strategy implemented by the team at Park Place focuses on tenant engagement. Sustainability tips are included in the monthly e-newsletter from the property team to all tenants, and educational information on efficiency is posted in library directories and on elevator screens. Next slide, please. So with all the efforts of our property teams, we were able to accomplish 12.8% water use reduction since baseline, exceeding our 10% goal, and 16.3% waste diversion, exceeding our 10% goal. Our success in water and waste savings was led by property manager training and partnership, data collection and analysis, and property engagement. Looking forward, we're currently setting more aggressive utility targets for 2035 and hoping to replicate our success in water and waste savings by using what we've learned through the W2 challenge. With that, I'll pass it over to Sorma.
Great, there we are. Hi everyone, my name is Sorma McCullough, Senior Manager of ESG at Digital Realty. We can go to the next page. Just a brief overview about Digital Realty. We're a global provider of data center colocation and interconnection solutions. We have more than 290 facilities in 47 metros across 24 countries and 6 continents. Next page, please. We have a robust sustainability program that touches various aspects of sustainability. In 2020, we set our first global carbon reduction target with the Science-Based Target Initiative to reduce our Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 2030. Our global portfolio is about 50% renewable, and within that, our European portfolio and U.S. colocation business is 100% renewable. Where we lead the data center industry in green building certifications, and we also have a robust efficiency team that focuses on implementing energy and water efficiency savings across our global portfolio, and we've been recognized by the Energy Star program for many years. And then lastly, we are the largest U.S. reissuer of green bonds. We have about $6 billion in green bonds that have been issued since 2015 that help support our renewable energy projects, green building certifications, and efficiency initiatives. We can go to the next page. Thank you. Our history with Energy Star goes several years back, starting in 2015 when we began benchmarking our portfolio in Energy Star Portfolio Manager. That year, we also certified our first data center under the Energy Star program. That was from a customer request. And then through 2017, we really expanded the benchmarking of our portfolio and ramped up certification largely as a result of understanding the certification process and being able to gather energy data for our sites. In 2018, we joined the BOMA Waste and Water Challenge to deepen our focus on waste and water tracking and efficiency. Prior to that, we had implemented waste and water initiatives, but this was an added push to really commit to waste and water efficiency. That same year, we published our first ESG report. This was the first time that we put out a full picture of our energy, water, and waste data, as well as information on Energy Star certifications and efficiency savings. And this was our way to start tracking consumption and progress over time. In 2019, we became an Energy Star partner, showing our commitment to the Energy Star program. And in 2020, we became the first data center partner to receive the Energy Star Partner of the Year award, and we received that award in 2021 as well. We can go to the next page. So before I go into the technical strategies, the first step is to benchmark. You've heard this saying a million times. We've already heard it once on this call, but you cannot manage what you don't measure. What we've done is we've put all of our properties into Portfolio Manager, whether or not we have data for it or not. We do this when we acquire a site or develop a new data center. And then once we do have data, we start routing that into Portfolio Manager. Because we have almost 300 sites, we don't do this all manually. We do have a utility billing service provider that gathers and processes and pays our utility bills and then automatically flows that energy and water data into Portfolio Manager. And really the effort on our end is to ensure that that data is correct and there's nothing out of the ordinary there. As far as waste, that's a little bit still maturing. If you've ever gone through waste bills, you know that all waste bills look different. If you're lucky, you do get tonnage in your waste bills, but more often than not, you get information on bin size and frequency of pickup. So we still have to do that manually on our end. And then lastly on this slide, use the right metrics for your property type. for most buildings, office buildings and some other commercial buildings, when you look at intensity, you analyze that on a per square foot or per square meter basis. For data centers, our intensity is per kW of IT capacity, and we also look at water usage effectiveness, which is the volume of water divided by the total IT energy consumption. Next page, please. So if you have a large portfolio like we do, it's hard to implement projects at all of our sites at the same time. So to make the most impact, it's important to understand water scarcity. So these tools that I've listed below help provide a more comprehensive picture to the risk-adjusted cost of water, taking into account water quality, water scarcity, and risk of interruption to our operations. And then based on those results, we develop prioritization of specific and most impactful water use projects. So the World Resource Institute's Aqueduct tool provides insights into water scarcity and helps us assess our water use in water-scarce regions. That's the image you see on this slide here. It's a very easy-to-use, free tool. You enter in the address of your sites, and it plops out information on water basin, different levels of water risk, as well as an overall water risk score on a 0 to 5 scale. There's been an increase in climate risk platforms as a result of things like TCFD, the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which focuses on disclosures on physical and transitional risks from climate change. We've used the GRESB and measurable climate risk platforms. There are others like 427 and Munich RE. These perform physical risk scenario analyses based on the location of your sites. And it gives you water-related risk information, including sea level rise, floods, and water stress using different climate change concentration pathways. We also use the Water Risk Monetizer tool that helps us quantify our quote-unquote hydro footprint to prioritize water projects in areas that pose higher operational risk and reduce operational costs, and points us to where we need to build in greater operational redundancy and resiliency. Next page, please. So the biggest focus for water in the data center industry is cooling. Because data centers need to stay online 24/7 year-round, they consume about 4 times more water than office buildings. We implement waterless cooling designs for new construction projects, which effectively eliminate the need for water in cooling towers and limit the water use to really irrigation, bathrooms, and kitchens. There are other cooling solutions that minimize the use of water usage, like adiabatic cooling, which is kind of a hybrid solution and still reduces water use by about 90% more than average cooling towers. There's shared cooling solutions like district chilled water and river water cooling loops. We actually have one of our data centers in London that uses dock water cooling to reduce energy and water consumption. And then we've also implemented a water metering project to ensure that all treated cooling tower and adiabatic systems for our North American portfolio have appropriate submetering to better measure and manage water usage, as well as collect data to apply for evaporation credits where available for additional cost savings. We can go to the next slide. And then where you do have to use water, be sure to utilize non-potable water where you essentially don't need drinking water, so landscape irrigation and cooling systems. Where we use water for cooling IT equipment, we've committed to using recycled water wherever locally available. And in 2020, more than 50% of the water used to cool our US data centers and 100% of the cooling water for our Asia Pacific data centers were supplied by non-potable water sources. With a global partnership with Ecolab's Nalco Water, the reclaimed water that we use for cooling can be recycled up to 10 times within our data centers before needing replacement. So you can see in this graph here, in 2020, 43% of our global water supply was provided by either municipally supplied non-potable or on-site recycled water. We try to increase that that amount every year. You can see a slight dip from 2019-2020. That was largely due to impacts from COVID-19. And then the intensity line graph just above it, you can see we decrease year over year, and that is largely due to the cooling system efficiencies that we've put into place. Next slide, please. For waste, we're still in the process of maturing that program. This year, we did conduct a detailed waste audit for one of our sites to understand where we lie in that maturity curve. You can see in these graphs on the left here, our disposed trash, we do get tonnage information in our waste bills, so we have detailed information for that. And then for recycled, that's estimated based on bin size and frequency. And with Portfolio Manager, you're able to, if you only have bin size, you can put in your bin size, service frequency, as well as percent full, and Energy Star pops out an estimated tonnage number for you. And what they've estimated based on these numbers is that for this site, we have about 33% waste diversion. And the good news is, based on our audit, the auditors came and essentially went dumpster diving, went through our waste bins to understand what our diversion looks like, and they also estimated that our diversion rate is about 30%. Interestingly, in that audit, they did find in the landfill waste, just the waste, not in our recycling bins, they found that 16% of that waste could be easily diverted into existing recycling streams through proper separation. That would increase our diversion rate to about 42%. And then with minor purchasing adjustments of break room disposables, so changing paper cups to BPI certified compostable cups, or plastic stir sticks to wood, and adding a composting stream, we could add an additional 48% to our diversion rate. And then the last piece here is the Flavia packets. So these are the coffee pods or packets. Those are all being thrown in the trash bin, so we can hire a Flavia vendor to come and provide recycling boxes for packets. And putting all of these together, we could increase our diversion rate to about 87%. Next slide, please. So a few best practices based on this audit was ordering larger waste and recycling bins to be more visible in common areas, and then pairing that with clear signage for recycling and waste bins. Oftentimes we find that folks at the site are confused on what they can and can't recycle, because it does differ per city and jurisdiction, so having clear signage. And then working with haulers to provide metrics if they can. Right-sizing the dumpster service frequency and location. So we found that both the landfill and recycling bins were significantly underutilized, so we didn't need as many pickups as we had contracted. And changing the location of the dumpsters, we found a lot of cardboard, wood pallets, packing foam in the dumpsters because it was the closest to the door, so optimizing the location of those. And then implementing a compost stream. We did not have one, but there are vendors in that service area that do provide that service. So adding that in, wood pallet recycling as well, and then I mentioned the Flavia packets. I think most coffee pod or packet vendors have some sort of pallet recycling. My family has an espresso. We have an espresso vendor that comes and picks up the pods and recycles them. And using reusable kitchenware, we have Digital Realty has decided to move away from single-use products and start using solely reusable kitchenware. But where we do use single-use products, changing that to BPI certified products so that we can compost them. And then promoting ongoing awareness. Those are the tips and tricks that Madeline went through. Emails and signage are very helpful in getting folks getting tenants to start recycling and managing their waste appropriately. And then lastly, something that goes a bit unnoticed is the janitorial team. So we found plastic supply bottles that were contaminated in recycling. So having a communication with the janitorial team to ensure that they are recycling appropriately as well. The next slide, please. So in summary, benchmark, try to automate where possible. Use metrics that are specific to your property type. Assess water risk so that you can prioritize where you're implementing projects for the most impact. And then reduce, reuse, recycle, find ways to reduce, minimize water use in cooling systems and elsewhere, and then recycle where you don't need potable water. And think globally, act locally. Make sure you have a program that's driven by a holistic understanding of what water means to your business, and implement locally at locations prioritized by greatest water risk. What's next for Digital Realty? We want to improve our waste benchmarking, so we're working on that. We've also implemented a global strategy that aligns with the overarching strategies and business of Digital Realty, and outlines site-level action plans designed to minimize water risk, maximize performance results, and optimize costs through a reduce, reuse, and recycle program. And coming soon, we'll be reporting advanced normalized metrics such as water use efficiency, or WE, which measures the annual water usage divided by the IT equipment energy at each of our sites, and a more detailed WEE that focuses on cooling water usage divided by the IT equipment energy. Next slide. And that's it. I'll pass it on, but feel free to email me with any questions that we don't get through on this call.
All right, great. Thank you to both of our presenters. As a reminder, you can submit questions through the chat, and we will be going through those at this point. So we'll open it up for the Q&A now, and I'll start to read through the questions that we've received so far. But again, if you have any that have come up or continue to come up, please go ahead